Myanmar is holding its first national election since the 2021 military coup, but the process departs sharply from conventional democratic norms. Now, the vote is unfolding in 3 phases, with the first concluded on December 28, 2025, and additional rounds scheduled for January 11th and January 25th, 2026. Now, the military authorities report a turnout of about 52% in the initial phase, significantly lower than pre-coup elections. However, major opposition forces, including Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, have been banned or dismantled, while laws criminalize criticism of the process, carrying severe penalties. Now, ongoing armed conflict and limited state control across large parts of the country have left millions unable to vote. As a result, international observers and human rights groups have rejected the election as neither free nor fair, arguing that it is designed to legitimize military rule rather than reflect genuine public choice. The unfolding vote raises broader questions about the meaning of elections held under repression and conflict, questions with implications far beyond Myanmar. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Alexander von Rugen. He's a global policy analyst in Amsterdam. Alexander, I'm actually wondering, is Amsterdam in 2026 yet?
See, I'm in Canada at this moment, so although Amsterdam is a country I'm familiar with, I'm German by heritage. I'm not there right now.
Okay. All right. Either ways, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And same to you.
It's a pleasure. All right. Now, with Myanmar's main opposition party, barred and dissent criminalized, Alex, can this election genuinely reflect the will of the people or merely the will of the state?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. It's one-sided. It's illegitimate. I think Africa as a continent, especially with the disruptions we've seen there in various countries, really should take a close look at this. Myanmar is a silent chess game going on right now. It's a proxy war. On one side, you have China, Russia. On the other side, you have American-backed rebels, and then you have India sitting on a fence in the middle because it has a large border with Myanmar and a considerable investment there. So how this plays out, the UN has already legalized the election process. It's not being recognized. So how do you fix it? It's not the will of the people. In fact, they've staggered their elections over 3 different terms. Why? Because they don't have territorial control and they have limited resources. They've got to move the security teams from one area to another to supervise the safety of the elections, which is only going to represent maybe 50-55% of the population. Ironically, the Constitution written by the junta in 2008 dictates that the first 25% of the votes go to the military junta, and before the rest of them are counted. So automatically they have 25% of the vote. They say they're doing this to maintain the discipline of democracy, which again is I guess a plausible reason, and since it's written into the Constitution, it also gives them a veto on the Constitution, because to change the Constitution you need 75% of the vote, of which they have 25%, so they get an automatic veto. They've wrapped this up upside down and sideways, but it's very illegitimate. And barring opposition and throwing them in jail just for opposing. I mean, what's the spirit of democracy? Democracy is the representation of all parties.
Now, speaking of the spirit of democracy, what happens to the idea of democracy when elections, are held amidst an active civil war and millions are effectively excluded from voting as well?
Well, that's not a democracy. It's not the will of the people, especially when half the people aren't allowed to vote. So, democracy is majority rules. Well, if you have a selected majority in a selected area of the country that you already control, that's not democracy. That's an excuse to appear you're being democratic, but it's a manipulation of the system, and the rest of the world sees it. Ironically, the monitors at the voting stations are Chinese, Russian, and Belarusians. It's so one-sided because they have interests. The Russians are selling arms to the military junta. Chinese are building a Belt and Road extension from China through the country and want communist rule to be maintained.
All right, now you talked about this not being a democracy, but do you think that, despite all these challenges, that this election is a credible pathway back to civilian rule, or is it a carefully managed exercise to legitimize continued military dominance at home and abroad?
Well, again, the concept of the military intervening to maintain order, if you have the right players involved, I think you can achieve that. Let's look at the history of America. They had a revolution to get rid of their colonialist taskmaster, England. Many people died, 50,000, which was a lot of people back then when you consider the population. But they drafted a constitution, and a nation was born, and it's been a democratic country since then. The integrity of the people behind the movement is what counts here, and what their goals are. You have examples in Africa right now, like Burkina Faso, case in point. You have one junta replacing another one, but it appears Captain Traore cares about his people. He's got an insurgency problem. He's dealing with it. The optics on it look like he has integrity and he's taking his country forward. Now, should that lead into a democratic vote in the country by the people? Well, time will tell. But you've got different players in different countries with different agendas.
Absolutely.
And you've got a multifaceted situation here where I think everything has to be site-specific. You can't generalize on any one country or any one people. There's cultural implications, there's religious implications, and there's corruption. So all deciding factors on if a country is going to be run properly.
Okay. Now, so Alex, when governments, present tightly controlled elections, as democratic milestones, how should the international community respond? Is it by engagement, rejection, or recalibration? Again,
depending on how it's staged, a combination of all three. Rejection if it's completely false and illegal. Intervention if the two sides or parties in the country want outside endorsement to legitimize the integrity of their elections. They bring in outside monitors that can give a fair count of what the votes are. Intervention, if the wrong actors take control, well, there's a thing called sanctions on countries. The biggest abusers in the world are under sanction right now. Look at Venezuela, look at Russia, amongst other countries, Iran. So whatever the outcome is, going forward, I think you're going to see continued sanctions until this resolves itself. The irony here is that the major source of income for the junta is actually American-run companies. Baker Hughes and Halliburton are running the oil and gas business for Myanmar, and that's where the junta draws most of its money. Now that oil and gas supplies China and Thailand. So you see, this is a silent chess game, and the factors involved here are different than some other countries, but we have to learn from this. We have to appreciate what's going on here, and hopefully either not allow other countries to make the same mistakes. It seems to be a very popular motion right now to arrest the opposition, imprison them, or delegitimize them from running as opposition. I mean, look at Tanzania, case in point. Look at Bobby Wine in Uganda. These are red flags for the people.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Gen Z population, which is going to be the next ruling class eventually, they're well aware, and they're the ones that are driving the revolution and the opposition. They've toppled two governments recently in Nepal and Bangladesh. Mozambique has its problems. Kenya is about to have problems. I think these are all factors that are going to weigh out in 2026. So we're welcoming a new year in a few hours. It'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Okay. Now, you talked about, countries not doing the same thing, and you also listed some that are threading the same path. But then beyond Myanmar, does this vote reflect a wider global pattern? I'm speaking of where elections retain their form but lose their democratic substance.
I can give you a list of countries that it's happening now: Tanzania, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Gabon, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Uganda, Algeria, Guinea, Central African Republic, Georgia. It's global, except in countries that have a more defined constitution where it would not allow this to happen. But there is a trend, yes. And it seems to be a cookie cutter, delegitimize the opposition, stack the votes. Wherever there's less control or more control by the governing body, the ability to manipulate the polls on ballot counting and that kind of corruption is a lot stronger. And you'll see it coming in different forms depending on which country you're in. But as far as the UN goes, they will not accept it. They'll reject it. But I don't. The affirmative action they're taking to stop these processes is, I would say, not very stellar.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alexander, for your time and for speaking, on this as usual. Alexander von Rugen is a global policy analyst from Amsterdam. Okay, he's German, lived in Amsterdam, but right now he's in Canada. It's a pleasure to have you, as always, on the show. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thank you.